All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with a record of 3-8, the Seattle Seahawks are well on their way to their first losing season since 2011 and their first double digit losing season since 2009. Now, the Seahawks season, in my opinion, unofficially ended when quarterback Russell Wilson suffered that finger injury in week 5 versus the Los Angeles Rams. And for Seattle, it's been downhill ever since. In 3 games without Wilson, the Seahawks went 1-2. While in the 3 games since Wilson has returned, Seattle is 0-3. And in those 3 games since Wilson has returned to the lineup, Seattle has only scored 28 points, with 2 of those points last night in the loss to Washington coming on a returned blocked extra point attempt. So you look at it, and the Seahawks, they're destined to miss the playoffs for the first time since 2017. And with that said, this franchise has some critical decisions that have to be answered. The Seahawks are probably going to finish with one of the worst records in the National Football League, but they don't have their first round pick, as that is property of the New York Jets following the acquisition of safety Jamal Adams. Now, the Seahawks, on top of that, they've not done a good job drafting since they had what looked like to be the makings of a dynasty in the early 2010s. It's really gotten bad for them in regards to the drafting. The offensive line is not good, and that's reflective in Wilson running around so much, but also in their lack of production in the running game. The Seahawks are currently 25th in the NFL in rushing, while they're 31st in total yards. And this season, the Seahawks, honestly, I think they were doomed from the start. Uh, because if you go back to the offseason with the rumors with the Seahawks possibly trading Russell Wilson to the Chicago Bears. And I know that basically cooler heads prevailed, but and Wilson publicly said he didn't want that. It just hasn't been there for them. And I mean, you look at the brain trust of the Seahawks right now with Pete Carroll and John Schneider. Uh, I mean, obviously these guys aren't going anywhere because they've gotten big time extensions soon, but they've got to do a better job of putting talent around Russell Wilson. That's the bottom line. The Seahawks have really lacked in that. When you think about when the Seahawks won their Super Bowl championship back in 2013, this was a team that was loaded with stars. This was a team that was loaded with talent. This was a team that was loaded with personalities. We don't have that with the current Seattle Seahawks right now. And basically, it's Russell Wilson and 52 other guys. So you look at the contract of Russell Wilson. He is under contract for 2 more years with the Seattle Seahawks. And it's a situation when you look at him right now this season. Russell Wilson is not healthy and he's not going to be healthy. The thing is this, I said it when he came back. I would have expected Wilson to try to wear a glove, maybe to get a better grip. But if you're Seattle and you're falling out of contention like this, you might as well just shut Wilson down for the rest of the season and allow him to get healthy because he is not making things better out there. And on top of that, the production around him from the other players is simply not there. Now, with that said, you ask yourself, should the Seahawks start over completely, or should they give it one more go with Wilson? Honestly, at this point, everything's on the table. You're hearing rumors, and maybe the Seahawks do trade Wilson in the offseason because the problem is this. Pete Carroll and John Schneider aren't going anywhere anytime soon because they recently signed contract extensions. Pete Carroll's going to be with the Seahawks through 2027 and John Schneider through 2025. And ownership is not going to sit up there and pay those two guys while paying somebody else to coach the team and run the front office for that long, which makes Wilson the more expendable guy. If the Seahawks were to trade Wilson, there are going to be some takers out there. I mean, I could see the Giants in the mix for a quarterback, the Miami Dolphins, Carolina Panthers, Washington, as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Giants, Dolphins, and Panthers, I say it from the standpoint that all of their head coaches, they have a couple of years under their belt. They have not made the playoffs, and they could feel the pressure on them. They've tried to go with younger quarterbacks, and it hasn't worked out. So, what better to have a veteran quarterback in place and kind of right your ship, and maybe he could be the missing piece to get you over the hump. Washington, Tyler Heineke's a stopgap guy, and of course Pittsburgh. It's looking like the end of the line for Ben Roethlisberger. So this is going to be a very important offseason for the Seahawks. It's a situation where they need to try to go out there and regain some draft capital because you're going to finish with a top 10 pick, but you're not going to have it. But going forward, I mean, obviously you can get something for Wilson. Obviously, guys like Russell Wilson don't come down the pike that often. But the bottom line is this: you're not going anywhere with him. And if you're Seattle, you have failed to put talent around him. Also, on the flip side, I've said this before with quarterbacks in the NFL, when they take the bigger contracts, the talent around them is not the same because the team then finds themselves releasing key players, trading key players in order to offset the big contracts that quarterbacks sometimes will command and want. And it's a situation with the Seahawks. As soon as Russell Wilson started taking those big deals, the talent around him decayed as well. So, this relationship that once looked promising, I think is fading fast. Something's got to give in the Pacific Northwest because right now, the Seahawks are indeed a shell of what they were just 5 or 6 years ago. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.